Lisa Bayer de Weaver. She is a minister at Merging Waters in Montreal. She is a student at CCS, and she will introduce our special speaker for this evening. Lisa.
Thank you, Elcrease. I have the pleasure of introducing you to a colleague and a friend. Reverend Franklyn James will be leading us tonight. Franklyn's a native of Kingston, Jamaica. He's now a distinguished resident of Canada. He's an educator, a pastoral counselor, a fervent advocate for social justice. He has an extensive background in theology and education. And Franklyn has dedicated his career to fostering holistic growth and empowerment. He's a critical thinker who challenges traditional and contemporary rhetoric, and he offers insightful perspectives on inclusivity and justice. His literary contributions, including Tones of Transition, Shards of Longing, The Little Things We Take for Granted, and The Body and Narrative, reflect his commitment to exploring the dark nature of societal issues and commitment to clear and intentional communication. Through his roles in the clergy and his writings, Reverend James inspires transformation, dedicating his life to educating, enlightening, and empowering others. And as an aside, I get to spend a couple hours a month with Franklyn, and he continues to inspire me with new insights.
Hello, everyone. Once again, I want to extend a great thank you to Alchris and the CCS team who offered me this opportunity to share my stories in the way I shared stories. It's indeed a pleasure to be able to do this and to continue to celebrate Black History Month in the ways I know how to do so. So thank you for this opportunity and welcome, and thank you for all who are here tonight to share in the experience and to add your voice and your unique ways of celebrating Black History Month and Black people. So we're not necessarily celebrating Black History Month, we're celebrating Black people and the gifts they bring to the United Church of Canada, the wider Canadian context, and even in the world. So thank you so much for inviting me and to be a part of this conversation. So I want to start with an invitation, and this is something Lisa is very much familiar with this chart because we used it. So invitation. When we enter into conversations about Black people or any minority group, it can pose a challenge. And so here we have an invitational chart that comes from Mike Breen in his book, Building a Discipleship Culture. And according to Mike Breen, he said the place we need to be is in the quadrant that's a discipling quadrant where there is high invitation and high challenge. In this way, we are empowering each other and growing in the work we do. And in this sense, in the justice work of recognizing the contribution of people everywhere. So we want to stay away from the cozy culture, the apathetic culture, and the discouraging culture, which the world is becoming more and more discouraging. It's becoming more and more apathetic, and many places people are too comfortable to move. And the story I want to use to share this is Moses and the burning bush to demonstrate this invitation and challenge. We all can recall the story of Moses in the wilderness, and he stumbled upon some burning bushes, and his curiosity was lit when he realized that actually the bush was not burning. This sight was an invitation from God, a divine encounter who is calling Moses into something big. So God called Moses and asked Moses to lead the Israelites out of Israel where they have been enslaved and into the promised land. And of course, Moses hesitated as much as he could. He doubted his ability, questioned his worthiness, and even pointed out all his shortcomings. It is at this point that God moved from an invitation and challenged Moses. God said to Moses, "It is I who have called you to do a work, and being called, then you have everything you need to carry out the mission. And who are you to question me in a nutshell?" And out of that encounter of challenging, Moses obeyed God and delivered the people from Israel with God. In that sense, Moses demonstrates leadership power. He becomes a prophet, he becomes a role model, and someone with whom we can look back on for experience. How do we engage difficult situation like Black History Month, with all the racism, with all the biases and all the other issues that so plague the community? And as I reflect, I said, what better way to also continue the conversation, but by reminding us as to where we all sit. There are many diagrams available that can teach us about power and awareness, but I find the power flower very effective as it can expand and extract to the nature. And so the more flower you can color, when you look at this chart, the more flower you can color, then the more power you have. And so when you realize how much power you have, you will realize places in which you have power and places you don't. For example, I am a Black person in Canada, not my social class, not my ethnic group, not my geographical region, right? So in that way, I may seem powerless. But I'm also a leader in a congregation, a predominantly white congregation, a middle-class congregation. So that gives me power. So in one sense, I will have power. In another sense, it may seem I have no power. And everyone, doesn't matter where they are in life, they have areas of power and awareness, an area where they seem to have no ability at all. And so this tool of the flower can help one determine where they sit. When one discovers that, then one can use their power and use their awareness to drive conversations around Black issues and any other issues that speaks to injustice, and to bring about the love that God wants for all of God's creation. So it highlights diversity, understanding power and privilege. It facilitates conversations and shows our intersectionality, personal experience, and promote awareness and change. So those are some of the tools. So as we engage this conversation, and even when you go into your breakout room, you may realize that you will have to lean into who you are and give others space, or take the space as you so needed and as the situation dictates. Now, what and why do we celebrate? Celebrating Black legacies in the church and the society, echoes of resilience. Why do we celebrate, and what do we celebrate? So to celebrate in the context of acknowledging the legacy and contribution of Black people in Canada and the United Church of Canada means to intentionally and actively recognize, honor, and appreciate the historical and contemporary achievement of Black Canadians. It involved both a joyous acknowledgement of their significant cultural, political, and social contribution, and the serious reflection on the journey and the struggles for equality, justice, and fairness. I like to use the word equity, it seems to cover more. So that's what we're celebrating. What is the purpose? The reason to celebrate is multifaceted. It's a form of recognition and giving value to the experience and impact of Black Canadians, which have often been overlooked or marginalized in the mainstream narratives. Celebrating these contributions is an act of respect, a means of to educate, and a powerful reminder of the diverse fabrics that constitutes Canada and its community, including religious communities like the United Church of Canada. It is also an affirmation and a reaffirmation of the commitment to inclusivity, equality, and the ongoing work against racism and discrimination. So the purpose also includes an acknowledgement. It affirms the significant historical and contemporary contribution, education and awareness, draws inspiration from the stories of resilience of leadership in our Black community and their heritage. Solidarity, foster a sense of unity, support ongoing efforts toward justice and progress, encourage and reflect on the progress made and the challenges that remain, emphasizing the importance of our collective effort. As we celebrate Black History Month, it's good to have these cemented and in our minds, so when we are celebrating, we can do so intentionally and with the power and awareness it deserves. Now, this is the section, before I start tell you anything further, I have some questions I want you to reflect on. I don't know if these can be cut and paste in the Zoom chat, so you have them in your room. But these questions ask us to reflect on the depth and the quality of relationships within our contact list. I normally ask people in my congregation, I want you to open your contact list and how many Black people is in your contact list? How diverse is your contact list and what you're doing about it? So this question stems from that. How many Black people do you engage with on a level beyond casual interactions? And of course, it's repeat down the other side. How many non-Black people do you engage? So everyone has something to hold on and chew on as they engage these questions. And in what ways do you actively seek to understand and embrace cultural experiences that differs from your own? This conversation and the invitation to have this conversation here stems from a blog I wrote at the beginning of the month. And so the question is, why did I write the blog? And so when I got the invitation, I was editing one of my books, and I wrote these lines: "Pens bleed, peas weep, my heart's desperate song. In this raging sea, they heal where I truly belong. Heart laden with sorrows, tale untold, where even thoughts of death softly unfold." So as I wrote the blog, I started with a similar phrase: as my fingers dance across the keyboards and I wonder and I ponder about life as a Black person in the Canadian context. And what was coming forward was both encouraging, but it was also challenging, because the first questions I asked myself was one of belonging. How do I feel belonging? So when I wrote, I sit in a place that is a home, but not my home, there's a sense of belonging, but there's a sense of I don't belong. There's no overt sense of rejection, but they are what you call implicit biases and prejudices on many levels. So I'm going through this own time of questioning whether I belong or not, and acknowledging that, yeah, this is a beautiful place and where I want to be, there just need to be some work in order for us to all not be the same, but have a understanding that promotes equity, justice, fairness, inclusion, and acceptance. So that's what I'm wrestling with. And as I wrestle with this, the conversation with others who said the United Church, this is one of the saying, is my workplace and not my home. I haven't found my home. So that tells that there is indeed work that needs to be done. And I said, okay, I'll write a blog post, but rather than go in the direction of reparation and slavery and all the other jargon, I wrote it in a way that is more educative, draw out conversation, and really encouraging and supportive. So that question of belonging is why I wrote the blog on what I experienced with others. I also write it from a perspective of questioning and wondering about the indifference that I experience. So I come across many Black people who are indifferent to any events and activity put on by people from African descent. Low attendance, low support, um, and I wonder why is it? Is it that people are uncomfortable? Is it because people are rejected? What is the reason why engagement is so low, why participation is so low? And also, I recognize the fact that I was told that I'm here to drink milk, not count cows. I don't know how many of you know of that saying, me they have to drink milk, me no they have to count cow. That means they are here for the benefit. All the other stuff, leave them out of it. I'm also aware that many of us come to the shores of Canada seeking better life. We want to escape an homophobic country. We want to escape political violence. There's a myriad of reasons why we come. And so many of us don't see a reason to participate and celebrate in events like these. And I want to lift that up, not in an accusatory way, but as a question. Why is it? Because one of the things I know, when we work together and participate together and celebrate together, the joy, the beauty, and the strength that comes from that is very beneficial to everyone. There are also questions that arose in my mind as to, okay, so we have all these Black persons in our midst, all these persons doing celebration, and I just run off a few of the names, and some of these names you know. So the first question I asked, like Charmaine Bailey, why isn't she well known across the church as one of the first persons, as Chris mentioned, I forget the word you use. How many persons know about Donovan Bailey, an athlete, or our own Antoine Bailey in the United Church of Canada? Why is it since the time of Reverend Wilbur Howard, there hasn't been another Black person in the position for moderator? Why did it take so long for Michael Blair to become the General Secretary and to this point? How many persons know people like Adele Halliday and others in the church? How many people celebrate these persons within our midst? These athletes and artists like Drake, Andre DeGrasse, These are not the people we like to talk about, like Lincoln Alexander, Viola Davis, and Jean Augustine. We all know these persons. How about our everyday heroes that face the challenge, the day by day, the grind, as we put it, to make something of themselves, contribute to the church, to contribute to our nations? Are they getting the acknowledgement that they need? And why is there such a gap between participation and access to many of these positions? So those are questions that rise up as I wrote the book. Other questions I ask are questions such as the resilience. When I listen to the stories of the everyday ministers in the church, and the everyday people that walk on the street and how they endure the racism, the microaggression, the disrespect, the deep pain. And one of the things I mentioned, I was at a congregation that was very challenging to be a part of. And after a short while, I decided I had to leave. I have colleagues who stayed in congregation for 4 years, 5 years, and 10 years, and now they are suffering from post-traumatic stress because of what they endure. The question I ask, why do they stay in those environments to the point of illness? And as I ask those questions, I ask myself, one of my fear for moving is I'm an immigrant. I don't have all the paperwork that gives me flexibility to move about casually and easily. How many persons are in those positions? How many of the Black person or other persons of minority are in those positions of oppression, of suffering, of pain, but are afraid to make a step because their lives depend on it. They can't run back to their country, so they have to find a way to survive. And so they are resilient. Many come out very powerful, doing a lot for the community, but many are scarred as we go through these experiences. And then, so another reason I wrote the blog is for reflection, to call for deeper reflection and understanding and commitment to inclusivity. And this is also a part of my contribution to encouraging awareness and celebration in Black History Month, to celebrate others and their legacies. And so on the screen, you may be familiar with many of these names, faces. Where are the absent faces? Do you call to say to someone, thank you for the work you're doing? You know, keep doing what you're doing. You know, support them in their journey and let them know you appreciate and celebrate them. And so those are the reasons I write the blog, and these are some of the persons I celebrate. And so some of my mentors are on this very page, like Paul Douglas and Michael. They helped me a lot in my journey, and I learned how to navigate. The others I learned through enculturating myself, learning about the context, and knowing who these people are. And so this is an opportunity for us to say, what face would I like to see on a screen? Will I make a screen like this and put the faces there of the people I want to celebrate and let them know that the work they are doing is meaningful and they are not alone on the journey? So this is my story and how I designed to share it. We are being offered an invitation to enter into conversations that are sometimes comfortable, like when God called Moses through the burning bush and sent him to Egypt to rescue the Israelites. It wasn't an easy task. And to ensure that Black people are celebrated in Canada and in the church, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take us being challenged. It's going to take we knowing that we have the gift, the tool, and the resources. It's going to take we knowing where we are on the power flower, and that awareness will help us how powerful a voice we can lend to each other. So this is why I write the Black History Month blog. This is why I celebrate Black History Month. And this is why I accept this opportunity, my small way of celebrating and appreciating Black people. So thank you so much for listening. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm open for all your questions, suggestions, and go ahead, Lisa.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much, Franklyn, for sharing your story and sharing with us tonight. You mentioned so many different areas where we have work to do as a church, as communities. I resonated very much with a lot of what you shared and the challenges that people of color face within institutions, including the United Church. If you were to pick one challenge for us as a church, one challenge to walk away with, knowing that the people on the screen now come from different geographic locations where, you know, where the opportunity to interact with people of color may not be a reality. We're all connected in one way, shape, or form to the United Church or through the diaconia or other ways that have brought us here. So what would be one challenge for us to walk away with, both as people of color and allies?
Okay. Well, thank you for the question, Lisa. The framing of the question and the vastness of audiences just in the United Church alone and the locations make the answer can be complex. But here's a simple answer. If you are not in a situation where you have access physically to Black people or any minority group, what you need to know, what are the policies in place from a from a policy level, what's the policies in place to offer Black people, people of minority, access and opportunity? Are they being followed? Are they being broken? Where's the inequity in those? And start advocating. So then when you start advocating, that will bring you into contact with people who will see the work you're doing and will join you wherever you are, from wherever they are. So that's one of the first thing I would suggest for persons who don't have that direct contact with Black people and minority people. And another thing I would say, to diversify your contact list. You know, who is safe that you can start with from maybe social media or something? Where's a safe spot to land and expand from there? And so I guarantee most persons from on the screen here have that access to do so, to expand, and they can encourage others to expand their contact list from a soft touch and then expand it. So that's how I would respond to that question, Lisa.
Thanks, Franklyn.
At this point, I will hand the meeting back over to Alchris and the CCS team. I want to thank you so much for your time, for your engagement. And I hope as you go, you can do your own invitation and challenge of others to join you in this celebration, not only this month, but for the rest of the time we are in this existence.